Alrighty. Hopefully my mic is working. Um, but I think we're all set up. I think I got everything all situated like it should be. And we're ready to start this. Yeah, let's begin. So, once again, welcome to here, the seventh episode of this GSFL Live recap podcast, whatever you want to call it. Um, that was a very interesting intro, but oh well. Yeah, um, I'm not going to take too much time in this intro here as I just want to get things going, and then we'll see how long it takes, and then we'll have to get through every single game or as many of the games as I can, and then we'll make sure to, which by the way, let me just make sure I have this all situated completely because I know for sure there's some things that I need to just make sure I can see everything properly. Oh, yeah, okay, so the one, I think that, oh, no, two. Oh, three. Oh, okay, that's not good. Okay, so I already noticed an issue I have, but hopefully we'll get to it when we get to it. Actually, I'm gonna fix it right now here if I can, or just try and get to it if I can here, so I'll just do this. Alright, we're ready to rock. So, once again, welcome. This is obviously, like, I already got all that, but we're gonna be recapping what happened in week 6 this past week in the GSFL, and a lot went down, honestly. A lot of exciting things, a lot of shocking things, a lot of you know, crazy plays, a lot of crazy scoring and whatnot, the whole thing. So we'll make sure to cover that here tonight, and then we'll start up week 7 here starting tomorrow. So we're flying through this. We're about halfway through now. For review, for those you just new here, the season is 13 weeks, 13 weeks long with 12 games being played, and yeah, so that's pretty cool, honestly. But yeah, so that's basically the main thing about this is, I was just gonna say we're halfway through already. So I'm gonna stop talking because we're for a second here. I'm gonna move on to our first topic of the night, which is obviously going through our games. So we're gonna first start off with our first game that happened this past Thursday night, which was the game that happened between the Elks and the Dreadnoughts in the Alamo City in San Antonio, Texas. And the Elks end up getting the victory 40 to 34. Let me just see if I can pull up the stats here using the franchise tool. There we go. So this game, like I said, Elks win 40 to 34. Pretty high scoring game, all things considered. It seemed pretty tight from what I remember in the very beginning, but then the Elks kind of took over, and the Dreadnoughts they tried to attempt a comeback, but fortunately it was just not meant to be, and they'll fall to 1-5 on the year. Elks remain high at 4-2. Looking at stat wise, Joel Basie, you can see there 36 for 53, 67% completion, 447 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. So fairly good game there by him. Only sacked 3 times with a QBR of 104. And then Eric Logan on the ground. So their run game was honestly probably the only downside of this team, but they really didn't need to do a whole lot as they were scoring through the air. They were, the receivers are getting open and whatnot. So the run game was kind of just a second nature sort of thing. But I think that if they got that going, I think this game would have ended. It would have ended a lot sooner. Or it would have been, out of reach for the Dreadnoughts more than just, less than a touchdown technically. A touchdown technically, but no, only 6 points. So, but yeah, Eric Logan, 42 yards in the ground after 16 carries and 1 touchdown. And then Matthew Murray, the leading receiver for the Elks, with 8 catches, 138 yards, and a touchdown. And another receiver hit 100 yards as well, and that was Joe Martin. No touchdown from him, but still 110 yards after 7 catches. And then the tight ends, Owen Malecki, and running back Eric Logan also got involved in the touchdown department. So there's that. Then moving over to San Antonio for the Dreadnoughts. Deshaun Bradley led his team in both passing and rushing. 40 for 54 is a fairly good completion percentage, but just, couldn't, he kept being sacked, so they had to keep doing a 3 and out. No turnovers from this team. So mistake-free football for the most part, just probably going for it on 4th down. Turnover on downs, punting, all that stuff kind of contributed to their loss here. But as you can see, closer look, obviously I said Deshaun Bradley's part of his stats already. 361 yards, passing yards, not too bad. 3 touchdowns, no interception, like I said, no turnovers. So fairly even game for the most part compared to Joel Basie. Then obviously Bradley led in the rushing department, 61 yards. And then in terms of receiving, only one receiver broke 100 yards, and he actually got exactly 100 yards, and that was Amon-Ra St. Brown. So no touchdowns from him, though. The touchdowns instead went to Tyler Childs, wide receiver, tight end Nick Baca, and wide receiver Theo Dobson. So that's where the touchdowns came from on the Dreadnought side of things. But all in all, it's really a fortunate, heartbreaking defeat for the Dreadnoughts, as they had a huge win last week. And they came in this week with their heads held high, hoping they can turn around this well under 500 record. But unfortunately, the Elks had different plans, and they will upset them here. Well, not really upset them in an upset sort of way, but upset them as in, spoil their hopes and dreams at home in San Antonio. So good game from both sides. Elks just ended up coming out on top in this one. So good for them there. Now we'll talk about the talk about the next games here, starting with the noon window. And that is the first one will be the Orbits taking on the Redwoods in Oakland, California. And the Orbits just continue to, honestly, I don't even know anymore at this point, because they're just one of the most dysfunctional teams I have seen in ever. It seems like they're competitive at first, but then they just kind of lose track of what they're doing or something, or they just get out of sync. I honestly don't know. At this point, it's unfortunate because they got solid players, they got a solid roster, but so far the last 7 weeks, or 7 games, 6 games I should say, they have just proven to not be able to do really much of anything, and they will fall to 0-6 on this game, winless still. Which is I feel like not very common for, the real life NFL, but hey, I guess, the Carolina Panthers in real life kind of had that happen to them, but still, I mean, we could potentially have this for sure maybe more than one team that doesn't win a game this year. Because like I said, we're about halfway through the season already, and this team is still winless, and still only putting up 13, average of 30 points a game, or 20 points, but they're all giving up an average of 40 or 35. But anyways, Tucker Finnegan, looking at his stats, pretty respectable stats, all things considered. 294 through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Rushing, again, just I can't tell if it's the defense that they keep facing, because obviously you see Nick Bosa here for the Oakland Redwoods in the cover graphic, but rushing game was pitiful and just non-existent, honestly. 15 yards for keep forgetting his name, Steven Short. He's just not the guy, and obviously injured as well for a lot of weeks now. But 15 yards from him in this game, 9 carries. That's not going to win you a game. That's just not. However, on the plus side, they did have a receiver break 100 yards, and that was Lorenzo Sharp. But outside of that, everybody kind of was meh. Junior Minor, very disappointing game from him. 1 touchdown. I mean, he had a touchdown at least, but your total was 13 points, guys. Like that's not very good. I actually remember just realizing I completely forgot to look at the defense of the last game, but oh well. But now looking at the Redwoods, meanwhile, Sam Young having a much better game. Well, I guess much better than Tucker Finnegan. 320 through the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Rushing game was way miles better. George Turner leading the team, 31 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Very good from him. But then obviously the receiving department kind of fell victim to them running the ball a lot. So Morgan Whiteside only led the team with 87 receiving yards. Still pretty solid, especially considering what he's done all year so far. So honestly, not that surprised that that's how that turned out. So plus he had a touchdown. So there you go. And as for defenses, no turnovers committed by the Redwoods, but 1 turnover committed by the Orbits, and that came in the form of a actually there was a forced fumble. I'm just remembering now. There was a forced fumble by the Orbits, but it wasn't recovered, or was recovered by the Redwoods, so it really doesn't count as a turnover. But there was an interception thrown by Tucker Finnegan, and that was to Brandon Altman, who was a middle linebacker for the Redwoods. So, yeah, all in honesty, I mean, actually, Nick Bosa led the team here with like 4 sacks in a single game. That's pretty impressive. And then the leading sackers on the Orbit side of things, meanwhile, the top players had only 2, which is still not bad. That's still pretty solid. But all in all, end of the day, the Redwoods took this one home, literally at home, and Orbits fall to 0-6, and not sure if they're gonna remain competitive at all after this or not. But it's tough to see because I had really high hopes for this team coming in here, and so far they have just not. They haven't delivered or done as much as what I thought they were gonna do, which honestly is fair. This is the first time we're technically using these rosters and whatnot, even though this is technically like the 3rd season I'm doing this for this league. But yeah, so that's really all I got to say about that. Kudos to the Redwoods again, though, staying in the race for their division. But yeah, so that's what I got to say about that. All right, so moving on to the that was a little loud. Moving on to the excuse me. Moving on to the next game, we have what was probably the biggest shocker to me, well, probably to everybody too, but the Blues finally, after starting off the season 0-5, host the Paris, I almost said London, the Paris Black Knights, and Terry Patterson and Derek Hyde and Luther Hyde and all those guys, and they beat them by 2 points. 43-41 the final score. And man, this was probably the game of the year so far. 43, obviously, like, what's one thing to have an even score like this, 43-41. It's another thing when neither quarterback threw a pick and they both threw over 4 touchdown passes each, with Terry Patterson throwing just about 100 more, or actually about like 60 more yards more than Jordan Love. But yeah, I mean, in the end, both quarterbacks played extremely well for their, how they played. The rushing game was very good for Greg Boykin, which is probably what ended up pushing him over the edge for the Blues. Junior Hopkins led the team for the Black Knights with 86 rushing yards and a touchdown to Greg Boykin's 172 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. And then receiving-wise, Paris, their team, Tyler Torrance led the team with 139 receiving yards, and the leading touchdown scorer went to Randy Overton, the tight end, with 2 touchdown receptions. And then St. Louis, meanwhile, Marcus Bawden led the team in receiving yards, 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that also helped them extremely a ton. And then other guys on their team had touchdowns as well. So all in all, and I guess moving on to defense, virtually, I mean, nobody. I mean, the one like no sacks. So that's the other main thing. That's probably the reason why the Blues won this game by so little, and just they were able to keep it so tight, is the fact that Jordan Love didn't take a sack. Like, this Black Knights defense, I feel like, was known to sack quarterbacks and whatnot, and they've done that so to their opponents already so far up to this point. But they they did this, and they were able to, Jordan Love was able to stay upright the entire time. That offensive line's got to pat themselves on the back for that one, because I was losing hope for Jordan Love as he was just losing heartbreaker after heartbreaker and not able to stay up half the time. But no sacks, really nothing on defensive-wise for the Black Knights, which is probably why they allowed 43 points. Meanwhile, for the Blues, no turnovers really on their side of things, and nobody had more than one sack and 2 tackles for loss. But yeah, all in all, very, very impressed with the Blues' performance in this one, and I can't wait to see what they do for the rest of the year, because they got the win, but they got a pretty big hole to climb out of if they're going to remain competitive, not just in their division, but also in their conference and then in the league itself as a whole. So, because right now they're still one of the basement tier teams in terms of power rankings, in terms of getting just overall in general rankings. And so yeah, if they want to change things, turn things around, I think this is a perfect opportunity for them. And I sincerely hope that they get back into this coming week and get working on practicing things that worked against the Black Knights and what they can work against their next opponent, which I don't recall who it is at this point, so I'll have to find it out. We'll have to find it out later when I reveal the schedule. So then our next game we'll talk about is the Dragons taking on the Thunderbirds in Louisville, and the Thunderbirds, another high-scoring game. This one, the Thunderbirds end up winning 42-30. Dragons dropping their 3rd straight game in a row after starting off the season 3-0, being one of the top teams in the league to beat. Now they've been beaten 3 times in a row. The Thunderbirds bounce back from their loss the previous week, and they get to be 5-1 now, one of the top teams in the league. We'll get to more about that later. So yeah, and all without their starting running back too. They still don't have Em Massey. He's coming back, I think, next week or this coming week, so that should be fun for them. But yeah, Nate Hampton still looking impressive as always. Didn't really have a greatest completion percentage, but made up for it with 3 touchdowns, no picks. Jacoby Ricard had an excellent day again, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then their leading receiver didn't hit 100 yards, but did do enough. Deontay Chamberlain with 2 touchdown receptions. Another touchdown reception, by the way, going to Brenton Ellis, another receiver on their team. Moving over to the Dragons then, Tokyo. Dan Norwell played pretty well, all things considered. 347, 67% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, also no interceptions. So overall, a fairly even game from both QBs. Fairly even game across both running games too. Deshaun Gills with 117 yards on the ground, no touchdowns though, 24 carries. And then their 2 leading receivers, both of them had over 100 yards, or at 100 yards, and one of them was Jimmy Knott with 110 yards after 8 catches, no touchdowns. And then their tight end, Mike Poe, with 100 yards exactly after 9 catches and a touchdown. Their leading touchdown scorer, though, was actually Brian Beck, no surprise there, with 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. So then meanwhile on defense, nobody had a turnover, nobody had an interception. There was a couple forced fumbles, but no, and actually one recovery, so 1 turnover, I guess, from the Thunderbird side of things. But other than that, that's about it. I mean, the leading sacker was 1 or 2 sacks from Edward Black, an outside linebacker for the Thunderbirds. But overall, this was a very good game from both sides. Just so happened that Louisville got their head in the game here when it mattered, and they took the lead and won the game by 12. So very interested to see what they do the rest of the year. Same with the Dragons. John Gill's really been held in check since his first 2 weeks of the year when he broke the single game rushing record twice in a row. So very excited about that, and I'm really hoping to see what how far this team can go in this next week, and we'll see who they face this next week as well in a few moments. But that is all the games from our noon slate. Now moving on to our 3 p.m. slate. Start off with another high-scoring game with the Huskies taking on the Oilers, and the Huskies end up winning this game 54-35, keeping their undefeated streak alive as they are now the only undefeated team remaining at 6-0. And I don't see them really slowing down anytime soon based on the fact that they were able to put up 54 points in the Oilers. But yeah, Anthony Richardson, I'll start with the Oilers first, I guess. No interceptions or anything, just took 7 sacks. It really didn't help him a whole lot, but he had a better QBR than David Diaz. Rushing game was also led by Anthony Richardson with 64 yards, so that could have probably been better for them. But the defense of the Huskies, the run stopping was just insane. Able to keep Barnes in check and whatnot for the Oilers. Let's see here. Two receivers on the Oilers basically essentially carried their team with over 120 yards each. With one of the Rosenthal brothers. I think they're brothers. Are they brothers? Are they? Yeah, we'll just say they're brothers. Rodney Rosenthal with 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. His brother actually didn't do terrible. Actually, they're about the same age. Wait. Hold on. No, they are brothers. Never mind. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're cousins. Regardless. Yeah. So the tight end didn't have that good of a game. 36 yards only. But the leading receiver on the Oilers was Manny Brooks with 1 touchdown, 135 yards, with 135 yards and not after 9 catches. So very impressive by him there. But yeah, I mean, overall, very good game, solid game receiving wise from the Oilers. Just kind of a shame that they couldn't keep up with the Huskies and their team. Speaking of the Huskies, look at them now. David Diaz, 40 for 59, 484 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and an interception. So he did have an interception in there. But that's about it. Differentiating from Richardson. Their running back, JaMychal Carroll, led the team with 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then their leading receiver, man, that's big, Darrell Matthews, who's actually in the cover on this graphic here, 184 yards after 14 catches and 2 touchdowns. Very good game from him. Another good game as well from Rick Peck, the receiver, with 113 yards. And then another touchdown coming from Benji Nails, another one of their receivers. So, yeah. Defensively, 1 interception coming from Greg Joseph on the Oilers, which is cool to see. Was that returned for a touchdown? It was. So it was a pick 6. I do remember that now. And in terms of sacks-wise, I mean, nobody went crazy on either side, so overall not too bad. But just in general, the Huskies ended up getting the lead early and then were able to, not give it back essentially. And yeah, they win by almost 20. So 19 points. Very, very impressive work from them. And very much looking forward to see how long they can keep this undefeated streak alive. And how, we'll see if then, I guess, on the flip side, if the Oilers can turn around their record as they're now 2-4 on the season. And I believe they have their bye week coming up. I could be wrong on that, though. But we'll find out about that later. Excuse me. I just have to keep drinking water for some reason because me talking like this and like a whole, sentence like this, maybe it's because I'm doing a monotone, not like, I don't know. That was really weird. All right. So next game, we have the Capitals taking on the Bulls in Brooklyn. And the Capitals, like last time, absolutely smacked the Bulls, crushing them 33-10 on the road as well in Brooklyn. And man, Brooklyn, I gotta tell you, my heart feels for you as well, because yeah, just I guess just say yikes, because you got a quarterback that's in his prime with Drew Roderick, You got solid receivers and whatnot, but you're 0-5? Really? You've done pretty solid in the past couple seasons, so I don't know what the deal is with this team at the moment. Obviously, only being, 0-5, whatever, still winless. But yeah, so Capitals end up getting their revenge. By revenge, I mean like they get a bounce back win after losing to the Wizards last week. So there you go. Let's see. But yeah, Junior Gray had a good game, 298 yards, 1 touchdown, throwing. Sam Pamphil had a good game on the ground for Columbus, 125 yards. No touchdowns, though. 1 touchdown came from Junior Gray. The other one came from their tight end. And then speaking of their tight end, the different tight end, Cam Blackman, is that his name? CJ Blackman, excuse me, led the team in receiving with 102 yards and a touchdown. So really the Bulls defense thankfully kept this team in check, because otherwise if we could have probably seen another one of those big massive blowouts of like 50 points to like 15. So I was really surprised when they only ended up being like a 33-10 victory. So but yeah, and then I guess looking over at the Bulls, seeing where things went wrong, Audric having probably his worst game of his career statistically. 265 is not bad. That's actually obviously very solid. But you got to score. You got to have touchdowns in order to make it pretty decently solid. So no touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Drops his QBR to 55 like that. 5 sacks taken too. Like that's not very good. Their running game was pitiful. Donovan Blake only able to get 42 yards. This Capitals defense able to stop the run pretty well as well. Blake did get a touchdown at least though, so they do have that to go. They have that to go off of, but yeah. And then the receiving room is just, it was basically meh throughout the entire thing, because their leading receiver was their tight end Jose Pearson, who only managed to get 64 yards and no receiving touchdowns, obviously. So not sure what's going on there. No turnovers on defense, and no sacks. Like they had tackles for loss. And they forced a fumble, but the Capitals defense was really they really capitalized. It's a bad pun. On their opponent here, and 3 interceptions, each coming from 3 different dudes. Sacks, 1.5 sacks coming from D tackle Carlos Morrison on the Caps. So on the Capitals. So yeah, overall this game ended up being it was a divisional game too. So Bulls fall even further down in their division from this loss, and the Capitals move back up to 500 at 3-3 on the season, and the Bulls able to let's see. I'm messing with my microphone for a second for some reason. I was seeing if I wanted to hold it instead of, never mind. But yeah, overall the Capitals got a good win here. Very excited to see if they can, what they do next, because they've won the teams that's been exciting at times, but then they kind of dropped 2 games in a row, and now they're back. Or they didn't drop 2 in a row. They just dropped a game. They won a game, and then they dropped last week, and they won this week. Will they be that consistent? I don't know. Or will they, win out and finish off? Let's see. What's the highest they could finish off? Let's see. There's 7 weeks left, so 10-3. No, 9-3. Excuse me, because there's a bye week in there somewhere. So, but anyways, so yeah, Bulls. I wish you guys the best, but show me a little bit more before I can tell you that. So. Then moving on to probably our tightest game of the entire week, although actually not necessarily. We have some other games as well. But the Voyagers hosting the Golden Eagles in Virginia Beach, and shockingly taking them down 23-20. So overall, a pretty balanced game between Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud. Herbert threw for 375 and a touchdown and had 1 pick too, so there you go. And then Cameron Hennings on their running game went 92 yards and a touchdown, pretty good. And then we got Nico Lopez led the team with 120 yards receiving, almost 2 with Jabari Jeffrey, but he had 99 and just couldn't get an extra yard for some reason. Then moving on to the Golden Eagles, Stroud threw for 209, a touchdown, 3 sacks, and also had 24 for 38 as well in there. And then Justin Mullins went off a little bit here with 140 yards and a touchdown. So that's pretty cool. And then their receiving room actually this game for some reason looked they were held in check clearly as Joey Looker led their team and only had 62 yards to show for it. So very shocking because they've been pretty dominant throughout the entire year. Their only receiving touchdown, by the way, going from Justin Mullins, so he actually scored on the ground and through the air. So that's pretty impressive there. And then in terms of defensively for the Golden Eagles, I guess I can show the Voyagers too, or I can share the Voyagers too. Golden Eagles, obviously, Herbert threw that interception. So Cesar Mirando, I love the name, outside linebacker, got the interception for the Mexico City. And then for the Voyagers, really nothing much happened. A couple sacks here and there, no interceptions. But they still managed to just edge out the Golden Eagles, winning 23-20. And this was the first game the Voyagers had their new uniforms that I found. That the same person that made the other uniforms finally released their Voyagers copy. They've actually released all of them now, but I'm only going to use... I'm not going to use all of them that he made or they made, just because some of them I don't really like a whole lot. And some of the ones I've found already that are from different people are fine, but this Voyagers one I'm kind of digging. I wasn't sure how I was going to like the space theme, as you can see there on the, the jersey and one on the helmet, but it kind of grows on me a little bit, or it's kind of grown on me a little bit since I started using it. So yeah, that's that. Overall, like I said though, great game from the Voyagers. Moving up to 4-2 on the year. Golden Eagles following the 4-2 on the season. So, yeah, kind of curious to see where they're going to be next week and how they do next week because that's always exciting to see, just what they're going to do next. So there you go. That's all I got to say about that game. And then we got, that was the last of our 3 p.m. games. It's actually a really short week this week, all things considered. So that should hopefully help us move along a little quicker potentially. Not that I'm in a hurry or anything, but our next games are the 5 p.m. time slot. So first we have the Wizards hosting the Monarchs, and the Wizards absolutely blow out the Monarchs. Well, not really blow out, but kind of blow out. Beat them by 22 points, 43-21. Looking at the box score more in depth here. Josh Allen had 290 through the air, 2 touchdowns and an interception, so nothing's really changed. And he's also had, let's see here. So John Hargrave had a down game with 48 yards on the ground only. He's been doing much better than that prior to this game. And then the leading receiver wise for the Monarchs was Justin Norris, but yeah, all in all, this Wizards defense must have held him in check because he had less yards than he usually does too. Defensively for the Monarchs, nothing really in the sack department. Only 1 sack total, and a ton of tackles for loss. 1 forced fumble. That's about it. No fumble recoveries or defensive touchdowns. So you see why London kind of struggled there. Excuse me. But yeah, then the Wizards, moving on to them here quickly. Not quickly, but Trevor Lawrence, meanwhile, had 372 and a touchdown, no interceptions, 79, almost 80% completion percentage. And then Jaquez Kinney had a good game with 97 yards on the ground out of 31 attempts and 2 touchdowns. And then the receiving was pretty good. Brian Tarpley, who was actually out for the next week, or this week, with 12 catches and 102 yards and a touchdown as well. So pretty good offensively, all things considered. And then their 1 interception came from Thaddeus Spittle, the free safety. And then their sack-wise, they didn't really have much as well, like the Monarchs. But in the end, they ended up winning 43-21 and moving up to 5-1 on the year, excuse me. And the Monarchs will end their 3-game losing streak, or 3-game winning streak, excuse me, and fall to 3-3 on the season. So there's that. Other things, I really don't have any other things to talk about this game other than it was very close in the beginning, and then the Wizards eventually took over and just really never looked back. And sadly, the Monarchs, excuse my voice cracking. the Monarchs end up getting the win here. And it's all good. So that's all I gotta say about that. Then our last game of the Saturday Premier games ended up being the Shamrocks facing the Steamers. And just like this Orbits, the Shamrocks have yet to win a game this year. Fallen to 0-6, scoring only 10 points. No offensive touchdowns other than a rushing touchdown by their backup running back, Damon Bethel. Actually, it's their third string, not even their backup. And yeah, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. Will Bentley had over 200 yards, 250 actually, he had 288. Was sacked 5 times though. At least his leading receiver, Edward Jackson, had over 92 yards. But outside of that, not a very impressive showing from the Shamrocks once again. Then on the other side, meanwhile, the Steamers, Brian Burbank did it pretty well. Things considered 220, a touchdown, and only was sacked 1 time. Johnny Staley had a good game on the ground, 115 and a touchdown. But their receiver room was kind of quiet this game for some reason, with Miguel Pagan with 64 yards and after 7 catches. No touchdowns, but a touchdown did go. So Staley scored a touchdown on the ground and in the air as well this week. But yeah, overall, and then I guess a defense we can kind of compare. Not a whole lot of defensive action from the Shamrocks. However, quite a bit of defensive action more from the Steamers. Vince Davis getting a sack and a half. 5 tackles for loss. No interceptions from either side. So overall, very low-scoring game. But in the end, the Shamrocks just still haven't figured it out quite yet. And will fall to 0-6 on the season. And yeah, I'm kind of honestly trying to figure out right now who's going to be the worst team in the league. Because right now it's a 3-way race between all the teams that are winless. So yeah, be very curious to see who has that at the end of the year. And if they actually decide to trade it for anybody to potentially try and, air quotes, tank to get a higher draft pick. But I don't really see the point in that because, you kind of want your guys on your team you're going to have and just try and compete as best you can. They're probably not going to get a playoff spot at this rate because they're already 0-6. Haven't gotten a win yet, so they need to get a win this next week to try and solidify them because I think one more loss and they're probably out of the playoff picture unless someone loses like 8 games or 9 games, which I kind of highly doubt. There's not enough weeks in the year, at least in this league. But yeah, so overall, not a terribly high scoring game, but a very defensive battle type game. And Steamers end up getting the win. So congrats to them. Shamrocks, kind of hope you turn things around this next week because we'll have to see what happens with that. But now I'm going to pull up the games from Sunday. And the reason why I had to fix something in the beginning of this was because the glitch happened again where I recorded the games. Obviously, I watched them, how I usually do and whatnot. But going into my franchise tool, for some reason, it didn't save the stats in my franchise tool. It's not showing the stats. Even though I played the game, I went through it all and whatnot. So the way to fix that, the workaround I found, is just to open up the game itself and then go back to that game and kind of show or find the stats. So that is what we are going to be doing. And I just realized too that, oh wait, no, sorry. I fixed it. So the first game here we're going to look at is the Sunday night matchup with the Armadillos and the Lumberjacks. And I have the Lumberjacks, the Armadillo stats with the Lumberjacks I don't have. Although it looks like it saved them. That's weird. I thought this was one of them that didn't save them. That is weird because it wasn't showing. It's not. Wait, hold on a minute. Yeah, so it's not showing them right now, but it was showing them earlier. Okay, interesting. Okay. So yeah, the Armadillos you can see there. Michael Sullivan, Lumberjacks ended up getting the win, by the way. I'm sure you can see that on the screen. But Michael Sullivan, 36 for 61. He attempted 61 passes. That's insane. I think it's a league high too. 372 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Michael Sullivan also led the team in rushing with 91 yards on the ground. The touchdown on the ground, there was a touchdown on the ground, came from Matthew Fowler. And then their tight end led the team with 137 receiving yards after 17 catches. However, the receiver, Quayshawn Smith, had 115 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. So just missed the cut there. And then obviously the only stats I can see on this screen here are Patrick Mahomes, 21 for 36, 346, 3 touchdown passes. Will Lowry with 102 yards, 23 carries, and a touchdown. And then Greg Tompkins leading the team with 8 catches, 185 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, I'm not sure if, yeah, so it's not even close because for some reason the game is only detecting it as like halftime. So that's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, in terms of defensively, I can't really say a whole lot, unfortunately. Really sorry about that. But Darryl Sullivan at least got a sack by halftime, who's a defensive end for the Lumberjacks. But outside of that, that's all I gotta say, unfortunately, or all I can say really, as yeah, that stuff happens, I guess, and just doesn't end up saving for some reason. But yeah, so that's all I unfortunately have to say about that game. Lumberjacks win barely by 4, moving up to 3-2. Armadillos fall to 3-3, so pretty close record-wise. But yeah, so we're gonna move on because I don't have much else to say. And sadly, this next game is kind of the same way as I see here, the stats did not save for some reason on Franchise Tools, like they glitched out or something. So the Antlers win this game. I mean, their offense I'm not sure who can stop them at this point because they're averaging a lot of points per game. Actually, how many they're averaging per game? Let's find out. Let's see. The Antlers are averaging, if I can find it here, points per game. They're averaging 47 points per game, and that's not even first. That's second. So another 50-point game here for them. Nighthawks sadly could not just keep up with them. That's just a sad, sorry fact. With 34 yards and 34 yards only, 34 points to 51 points, 5-1. The Antlers are having their best season so far as a franchise, and Nighthawks just fall. These two teams are both 4-1. Start coming into this game. The Antlers now easily leading the microphone messed up for a second. Hold on. That came off my desk. So if you hear something, that's just me fixing the microphone. But yeah, so Antlers doing very well this year. Okay, let's see. I can probably fix this here. One moment. Okay, fix it. All right. So yeah, Nighthawks. We're kind of close in this one. Greg Hyde, 33 for 53, 437, and 4 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So he did throw 2 interceptions. And then we got the Eric McDonald leading the team with 75 yards after 18 carries and a touchdown. And then Ahmad Pearson, the wide receiver, for the Nighthawks with a 4 reception, 122-yard game and a touchdown. So that's pretty exciting, all things considered. Then moving on to I didn't finish the other one. Jadarius Herring, 30 for 50, so only missing 20 of his passes. 280 through the air, 4 touchdown passes, no picks. I believe what's his rushing? Isaiah Melton, 35 attempts after 160 yards, and a touchdown on top of it. And then their tight end, Josh Lincoln, with 10 catches, 96 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So very impressive game by him. And like I said, once again, not sure why Franchise Tool has this problem, but the stats glitched out, so I can't see them for either offense or defense or for special teams. So really sorry about that. I wish I could show you all those defensive stats. I mean, I guess I could show you a little bit of what's in the game, but again, the game's kind of behind. So we'll just kind of look at the Nighthawks here. So Duke Keys, I haven't changed his name yet, had a sack and a half by halftime. Sam Nickerson had a half a sack, but that was basically about it. So overall, Nighthawks tried their best, but ultimately fell short to the ultimately fell short to the Antlers by a decent amount, and Antlers will remain one of the most powerful teams here in the league through 6 weeks of play. So I'm very excited to see what they do after this week. But next and the last game now of the week, we have the Riverhogs and the Pioneers. Now this one, this one is not showing either, but I did add the stats. So the stats for the Pioneers are not entirely correct, as Malone had more yards than that probably. But again, in franchise tool, it's not showing. So just take my word for it. But the Riverhogs end up beating the Pioneers 31-9. This was one of the more popular rivalries. I mean, for me personally, I personally like this rivalry because they kept showing up. These two used to be in a division together back when this was the old NFL relocated league, and I've since moved them, obviously, since conference realignment and whatnot. But I'm still very excited to put this on the schedule and see these two teams do get out and whatnot. And obviously, I mean, it seemed like it was going to be a good game, but then all of a sudden the Riverhogs just kind of took it away and just ran away with it. Overall, Pioneers not have a good time. Brady Malone struggled. Everybody struggled. Except for Jadeveon Aiken, looks like 113 yards and a touchdown for him. Jamal Bennett. Is it Jamal Bennett? Is that his name? Jamal Bennett had 17 carries and only 58 yards. A very low scoring game for him. Well, actually, that's probably not his final score, but again, the game glitched out. I'm going from what I have. And then Brady Malone, 14 for 26, 189 yards by halftime at least, a touchdown and an interception, which I guess this seems realistic because they only scored 9 points total. But that's an odd score already. So there's that. And then meanwhile, on the flip side of things, Steve Dowling had a much better game, 241, a near perfect passer rating, 4 touchdowns, no picks. And then Justin Lopez had a pretty good game himself, 27 attempts for 116 yards on the ground, no touchdowns, but they really didn't need it. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba led the team with 11 catches, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So kind of carried the team in a way a little there. So ultimately, this is just kind of what happened when, just a certain result happened when these two teams met up. I wasn't necessarily planning on it. But, So, anyways, that's this game and all. Again, I don't have much defensive stats for you because they're not there entirely. But, So, anyways, that's pretty much all for this game, I think. And that is going to be also it for this, recap of the week, and we're gonna move on now to talking about what's coming up this next week, as we get into the weekly awards and the power rankings, updated power rankings, as well as the upcoming schedule and whatnot. So, and predictions as well, as always. So, let me just quickly close things out here. Let me close out the game here as well, just because I don't need to use it anymore because it was a tool at first, but now it's just kind of it's just kind of me looking at it. I don't really need it necessarily this time. And then I'll make sure to get those other stuff pulled up so we can continue on and get this recap, not have it drag on for too long. I guess we'll talk about the updated power rankings first. And we'll talk about that in a moment here. So here is the power rankings, updated power rankings for week 7. By the way, the numbers are not right for the up and down. I just kind of quickly did it and I didn't really think about it, but until right before I did this. But there's that. So, but I can at least see the changes, see where if they went up or down from last week, and then you guys can leave your comments in the below to see if you agree with me or not of where teams are placed. So, for number 1, the Huskies remain the top team in the beat, 6-0, makes sense, no problem with that. The Antlers, powerful offense, pretty solid defense, 5-1 record, move up 3 spots from their last spot, or sorry, they move up from their last spot. Golden Eagles do as well, despite only having a worse record technically than the Thunderbirds, who do drop this week. The Black Knights rise this week. The Wizards will fall a little bit. The Nighthawks will fall. The Elks will rise a decent amount. They'll actually swap places with the Bisons. And then the Capitals will rise into the 10 spot, rounding up the top 10 teams. And then I can go over here. You guys can look at this all if you want. The Monarchs have moved up. Notable moves, I guess I can point out. The Monarchs have moved up to 12, so they only continue to go up. The Tigers, so despite losing, they actually go up a little bit. The Tigers move down. The Dragons move down significantly again, that due to losing. And then we got the Steamers moving up. The Condors move up a little bit. And then we still, obviously, no shocker, as you see down here, having the, despite the Blues winning, they actually moved down in the power rankings. Trying to figure out how that works still. But, yeah, the last 4 teams are still the same based on the outcomes of the games that occurred this past week. So the bottom teams are as follows: the Bulls, the Orbits, the Shamrocks, the Dreadnoughts, and the Oilers. So you're looking at your top 5 order essentially right there for draft pick. If we were to do a draft, a college draft after to start another season of this, potentially, later on, like in the spring or next summer, that's when we would do it essentially. But yeah, so that's the power rankings for you. If you have any concerns or comments, feedback, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to see your feedback on this, where you think teams should be, if you've been watching for the whole season or not. If you feel like your team should be higher or lower, just let me know. Because I do these based off the game, but you might have your own opinions, and that's totally okay. So, excuse me. But now we're going to move on to our next section, which is the weekly awards section. And we had our first occurrence of back-to-back weekly awards for players. I think last week. I think that was off camera. I don't think it was on the stream. I think it was to myself. But I was like, yeah, funny how we haven't had anybody duplicate, win 2 awards in a row, or win 2 awards, 2 awards at all. We haven't had a repeat person. Well, I obviously, jinxed it or something, because we just did. So, Jadaris Herring wins Offensive Player of the Week for the WFC side with his stat line, as you see there. And then defensively for the WFC, Nick Bosa leading, getting the weekly award there for the Redwoods with his 4 sacks in a single game. And then moving over to the EFC side, we have Terry Patterson taking home of the award again. Actually having a slightly better game than last week. Less rushing yards and no rushing touchdowns, but regardless, still carried his team to a win and still able to, or actually, no, he lost the game. Hold on. I just realized that too. So he did that all and he lost the game. I don't know. I forget that they can sometimes go to the losing team, so there you go. So they only lost by 2, but Patterson still gets the weekly award. That's kind of funny. And then for defensively for the weekly award, the only person they really could see they giving it to was Greg Joseph, the free safety, who had the 1 interception, the pick six, the only pick six that happened all week. So there are your weekly award winners. Congrats to them again, as always. And yeah, very impressed with them. Obviously, they're able to get weekly awards, so they're obviously doing something right. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But now we're going to move on next. I know we're kind of moving a little faster here, but we're going to move on and reveal the schedule for the upcoming week, week 7. So here it is. And that's not right. That is not the right schedule at all. Hold on a second. Oh. And I got to wait for my external hard drive to come on again here. And there we go. There's the weekly award schedule. The new schedule for week 7. We have slightly more games. They're slightly laid out differently, but you see all the games there, see when the commentaries are. But yeah, so starting off, we have our Thursday night game tomorrow night at 7:30 Central between another EFC North matchup. This time between the Huskies and the Aviators. So that should be a very fun game to watch, hopefully. Last time these two teams faced was a couple weeks ago. It was a very low-scoring game for those of you who remember. I believe it was the Huskies that took away the victory, but I think it was all field goals. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But I'll have to see who wins that. I think, for me personally, I like the Huskies in this one. They're 6-0. Kind of can't go against a 6-0 team. It wouldn't be shock me if they get upset this week, but I'm going to go with the Huskies. Just going to play it safe rather than trying to pick the Aviators to pull off the upset. So, and then we'll move on to our Saturday games next here. Starting off with the Voyagers and the Shamrocks. Shamrocks, man, they've been struggling all year so far. Voyagers got a huge win this past week. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Voyagers. I think it's going to be a closer game than we probably, it seems like it will be on the surface. But I'm still going to take the Voyagers in this one. They're going to probably win by probably about 10 or more points, if I had to guess. Excuse me, there's a storm and winds going on outside my window right now. So I'm trying to get through this as much as possible. Then we got the Condors. Next game taking on the Lumberjacks. And for this one, I'm actually going to take the Lumberjacks in this one because they're at home and they have Patrick Mahomes. Not going to bet against him. And the Condors have been struggling kind of this year off and on. So I'd like to go again, play it safe, go with Patrick Mahomes to get the win here at home in Week 7. Then moving on, we got the Wizards and the Sentinels, a new division matchup as of this year. The Wizards coming off a tough, or actually a big win over the Monarchs. The Sentinels, I'm trying to remember, they have Bryce Young back and whatnot, I believe now. So Bryce Young, I don't think did too well in this. Or no, he had a bye week this past week. So now he'll be coming back here and, potentially leading these guys to victory. I'm still going to take Trevor Lawrence, though. I like him a lot better as an overall player. Overall, their team is better. So I'm going to take the Wizards here to get the win on the road in San Juan. And then finally, finishing off our 12 p.m. noon slot on Saturday, we have the Black Knights taking on the Montreal Snowhawks, a new EFC East matchup that we've never seen before. Very hard to pick, kind of. Larry Rutt versus Terry Patterson. Despite them losing by 2, I'm still going to take the Black Knights in this one. I just feel like they're going to just do really well against the Black Knights and whatnot. Or, sorry, against the Snowhawks. Snowhawks have been kind of inconsistent all year, so that's my reasoning for that. Then we got our 3 p.m. games. We got the Thunderbirds taking on the Monarchs. And the Monarchs, this should be hopefully a very exciting game. We got Josh Allen versus Nate Hampton. I'm actually, I want to pick the Thunderbirds, but my gut feeling says I'm going to pick the Monarchs just because I feel like they could upset them here. I don't know. Like, Emmett Massey's coming back this week, but I don't know, I have this weird feeling that, like, by the sudden it won't be a it'll be a close game. I'm not saying it's not going to be. I'm just saying that I feel like there's something with them playing at home that the Thunderbirds, they got the big win over the Dragons. Like, they only won by 10, or 15 or whatever. Like, it's still a pretty good score, but I don't know. I feel like the Monarchs could potentially pull the upset here. So I'm going to go with London. Please don't let me down. Then we got the Golden Eagles traveling to Honolulu to take on the Orbits. And, man, I really want to pick the Orbits in this one. Actually, you know what? We're going to just we're going to go crazy here. I'm going to pick the Orbits and Tucker Finnegan. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. I'm picking the Golden Eagles. I trust CJ Stroud a lot more than I do Tucker Finnegan. And I think this team's going to blow them out of the water. I really, really do. It's probably going to be close, but it's a division game, I believe. So could see something there maybe, potentially. Then we got the Bisons taking on the Mounties, and the honestly, we got Brock Purdy versus Joe Burrow. Ooh. You know what? Just because they're at home, I usually go with the home team if I'm not sure. I'm going to go with the Mounties just because I think they're going to potentially edge them out a little bit more. But I would not be surprised if the Bisons get the win here on the road. Then we got the... Ooh, that's not the right game at all. Actually, I forgot to disable that. That's not supposed to be... Or no, actually, that is right. Yeah, my bad. Forgive me. I'm thinking of something different, completely different. So the next game is the Steamers taking on the Blues. And right here, St. Louis, this is your chance to beat up on a Steamers team that honestly has been pretty solid throughout the season so far, but they've been also kind of not as consistent as I would have, I would have thought they would be. So here, Jordan Love, I say here, I'm going full force for him. I'm probably going to regret this decision, but give me the Blues to win this game and beat the Steamers at home here. Get another back-to-back victory for them, which would really help their playoff chances. Then we got the Redwoods taking on the Dragons in Tokyo. So obviously this is a rematch from week 2 on Thursday Night Football, where they were in Oakland. The Dragons won that game. And honestly, despite how these teams have played since, I think I'm going to go with the Dragons to complete the sweep. I would not be surprised if the Redwoods put up a really good fight, but something tells me that if the Redwoods were able to not beat the Dragons the first time, there's probably a good chance they might not be able to beat them again. But then again, they could split and they could literally beat, the living crap out of them, and it would probably, just that's how it would work out. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Dragons for a safe bet, but would not shock me if somehow, some way, the Redwoods pulled off this upset, or at least got the win here on the road. And then finally leaving us off here, we got the Riverhogs taking on the Elks, and this is another rematch from a few weeks ago. I believe the Elks win? I'm trying to remember now. I unfortunately can't remember. But regardless, these are two good teams. Both I think 4-2 roughly record wise. I think I don't know. My gut says pick the Elks, so we're gonna pick the Elks here to win this game. Joel Basie's just been kind of doing his thing and whatnot and all that. But Riverhogs will probably put up a pretty good fight, but give me the Elks to win this game. And let's do that. And I realize my microphone is also falling off my desk again, so let me quickly fix that because that's not cool. All right. So fix it now, but yeah. So, anyways, that's my picks for the Saturday games. Now we'll move on briefly to our Sunday games here. We have the first or our only Sunday game, which is the Desperados taking on the Antlers in Anchorage, Alaska. Antlers are obviously favored to win this one by a lot, and honestly, I'm not going to pick against them. I'm going to take them to win this game. If I had to pick anybody or bet any money on it, I'm not going to, but yeah, give me the Antlers to win this game, and they're probably gonna beat them pretty badly. We'll see if their quarterback can for the Desperados is able to hold up to their offense, but I don't know. We'll see. And then lastly, our Monday night game. Finally, the Bulls taking on the Tigers, former division rivals, now facing off here on Monday Night Football, or Monday night here. And honestly, we got Lamar Jackson versus Drew Roderick. Bulls are needing a win here, and I think, honestly, if there's a team they could potentially get it against, it might be the Tigers. So I'm actually going to pick the upset here. I'm going to take the Bulls, but it's not going to be close, or it's not going to be a big win. It's going to be a very close win. So, yeah, Bulls, I trust you guys can get it done here. If not, you might go winless. You might not win a single game after this, but we'll see. A lot of things can happen and whatnot, but yeah, that's gonna be my pick for that game. So yeah, that is my quick rundown there of all the games and what's you guys can see. Let me know in the comment section what your favorite upcoming game this week is, and who you got winning that game as well. And then as you see our bye week teams, we got the Capitals, Oilers, Armadillos, Pioneers, Nighthawks, and Dreadnoughts. So those teams are on a bye this week. And then next week there will also be 6 teams on the bye as well, just to let you guys know ahead of time. So yeah, like I said, we're getting there, guys. We're getting through this league and we're getting through this season and all that. But yeah, honestly, that's basically all I have to say about from this for the stream purposes. And so if you guys have any questions for me or anything, feel free to leave them in the comment section after this is uploaded as a video. And if you're not yet subscribed or whatnot, feel free to do so. And tune into all the games that happen up in the upcoming weeks. I'm pretty sure the Instagram and the Twitter are linked in the description. If they're not, you can find them on the channel page to find all the updates and whatnot that I don't post on YouTube for this channel. Also make sure, I haven't done it yet, but I will probably link my other channels I run as well eventually. Try and connect everything up. But for now, I'll just leave it the way it is. But yeah, so anyways, that is going to be all from me. I hope you guys are enjoying this league as much as, I am up to this point and whatnot. And yeah, hope you are, excited for what this is going to happen here. Who's going to win the championship and whatnot eventually at the end of the year. Hopefully, if we get to there. I'm going to really try hard to get to there. I've said this before, but I really am. So, very excited about that. But for now, that is going to be it from me. Thank you all so much for watching this. And have yourselves a good night. So, see y'all tomorrow and start of week 7. So, take care. Peace.